Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest Brexit cock-up from the clumsy way in which Rishi Sunak is conducting government in an attempt to bypass the EU Commission and talk directly with member states. The government have made a monumental mess, has created new friction between the UK and the EU, when just a few months ago it looked like progress was being made. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So the yin and yang of Brexit today. We start off with the news that Rishi Sunak has officially shelved the plans to replace the CE mark with the UK CA mark in Britain. This is progress. Will make life a lot easier for a lot of businesses. It's not making Brexit work or anything, more removing an unnecessarily destructive facet of the extreme Tory Brexit, which they never had to put in the first place. But a pragmatic move is a pragmatic move. Then we hear, well actually technically it was yesterday we hear, that Rishi Sunak also angered the EU Commission when he really needs to be working with them in order to ease unnecessary friction as we begin to see more Brexit friction applied. So what are we to conclude about Brexit under Rishi Sunak? Pragmatic, but clumsy. So when I had this article pointed out to me in The Independent, first of all, my initial thought was, what has that explosive idiot Rishi Sunak done now? Seriously, is there nothing he can get right? He's now annoyed the EU, just at the time when we really need cooperation. Both the UK and the EU are applying extra levels of Brexit friction, trade friction, movement friction over the coming months. Brexit was never done in 2021. There's still bits to be done. There'll still be bits after this year and next year. It's still happening. And there are some really important phases about to take place. The EU is still gearing up to implement the long-delayed ETIAS scheme. We're not ready for that. And the UK is getting ready to apply standards controls on EU imports. We're not ready for that either. And it's this second issue which caused Sunak to put his foot in it, apparently. These standards controls are going to present a huge problem to our ability to import. It's essential that we have these controls, but it has to be done right. Also needs careful coordination with the countries who have direct trade borders with us. Let's give an example of why. So every time a new holiday season starts, right, what do we happen? We get huge delays at Dover, right? Massive. Now, delays were always going to happen because we deliberately ended freedom of movement, right? That's what it meant when Priti Patel said it as if it was a victory. We're ending freedom of movement. That's what she meant. Queues at the border. It means delays. However, the delays are worse than they needed to be, even given our exit from the single market. When it comes to dealing with passport controls at Dover, it's of course French border officials who deal with it because we're passing into their country, but they use British facilities. It's on the UK side. The French said we should expand those facilities and then they'd be able to send more officials so that they could get through the queues more quickly and efficiently. Boris Johnson went, no, get knotted. So now we have longer queues, which we blame on the French because our country is run by drunk chimps. But there was an element of hope when Rishi Sunak came along. Apart from anything else, he doesn't drink, so that was a bonus. The Windsor framework was a definite tilt towards a Brexit solution, which involved an approach based on mutual respect. It could have kicked off a much more fruitful line of discussions. We absolutely must not suffer extra damage from applying these standards controls. You can see why Sunak's so desperate. When it comes to the EU imports that we're going to be applying controls on, it's British officials who'll deal with it, but used in the facilities of whichever country they're passing through. And we already have problems. We already have shortages in the shops. We already have price rises. We already have shortages of medicines, food and things like that. We're going to get more. We need to limit how much more. France obviously is going to be the big one, but there are other countries that we need to work with. So the UK government has been bugging individual member states for their plans to help deal with the checks we're about to carry out. Presumably to avoid restricting the flow of imports to the point where people notice the extra shortages. That won't do them any good at the ballot box. Already the government has decided that it's not going to apply checks at all on certain goods, so green light for smugglers there. But there are others where the number of checks ramps up to 100%. And I was talking yesterday about how some foods will be blocked from import altogether as a result of this. But the ham-fisted way in which Sunak's government's been going about this seems to have annoyed the EU Commission, who reportedly told member states to ignore the UK altogether, and when you must respond, just do it with limited information. After 7 years since the referendum, how can the Tories still not know how the EU works, even on a fundamental level at least? The EU Commission exists to coordinate things like this. Like, there are times when you can talk bilaterally with an individual member state because, there's certain things they will just deal with on their own. But this is an EU-wide issue. Anything to do with Brexit is an EU-wide issue, right? You go to the Commission. Recently, James Cleverly, our Foreign Secretary, said that the ultimate outcome of Brexit was to have friendly relations with the EU. So if that's the government policy, how come they're making such an arse of it? When it comes to any Brexit matters which affect the whole bloc, the vehicle to getting what we want is the EU Commission. They are the ones who deal with the issues day to day. Trying to circumvent them is counterproductive. I am getting major déjà vu here. This is like when the Tories first began to start the Brexit process, and the very first Brexit Secretary, David Davis, remember him? He thought he'd be going off to Berlin to talk to the German government. Oh, we're going to sort Brexit. I'm just going to have a little word with Angela Merkel. Off to Berlin. No, Minister. No, you're going to Belgium. You're going to be talking to the people the EU Commission have appointed. It's the same thing again, isn't it? 7 years gone, 0 lessons learned. And why is this such a big deal? Because the clock is ticking. 3 months today exactly, we are supposed to begin the first of a 3-part process of rolling out our standards controls on EU imports. The reasons these have been delayed for so many years is that we are simply not ready for it. We don't have the facilities, we don't have the staff, we don't have the systems. After years, we've cobbled together a very weak system, which is nonetheless better than nothing, or so we're told. But even that weak system has the potential to result in very noticeable shortages of food and medicines, as well as other things, of course, and very noticeable increases in prices for what does get through. Now, being clear, there is no way to avoid further shortages. There's no way to avoid further price increases. If you create trade friction, that's what happens. This is going to happen. This is hard Brexit. That's what it means. But both the shortages and inflation can be made much worse by incompetently applying these unnecessary trade sanctions on ourselves. But I'll tell you what I found really worrying. You can read the article. There's actually several worrying things in it. I'll tell you what I found the most worrying. So it's bad enough that the Tories tried to bypass the Commission. You go, right, that's another spanner in the works when we're trying to rebuild trust here. And it's wasting valuable time as well. But towards the end of the article, there's a particular line. It's a quote from an EU official. It is up to the UK to draw up a workable import regime, taking into account the significant volume of exports from the EU to the UK. So remember earlier when I was saying that, the UK government, Rishi Sunak's government, were talking about asking other member states what their plan was. And it's like, no, it should be our plan. Well, here the EU official is saying the same thing, but I want to read it again because that's not what worries me the most. Read it again. It is up to the UK to draw up a workable import regime, taking into account the significant volume of exports from the EU to the UK. This statement means one of two things is true, doesn't it? First, that the UK government have a workable plan. It's all there, it's all done, it's all sorted. But they haven't bothered to share it with the EU Commission because they haven't seen it. Well, we need their help to implement it. Or second, it means that the UK government don't have a workable plan. We're 3 months away from all this needing to be in place, including having the facilities ready, staff trained, exporters informed, because they've got to use the system. Yes, granted, there are 3 phases, and you could say it's actually 15 months before the final phase comes online. But if the EU don't know what the plan is 3 months ahead of phase 1, and we need the EU's help to do this, what's going on? If we have a plan, why aren't we sharing it with the EU? How does that make sense? What if the government do have a plan and they have shared it with the EU, but this statement from the official is because they don't think it's a workable plan. They haven't been shown a workable plan. Well, what if the government think it is workable? What's that going to mean for November? Do we go ahead with what they think is a workable plan, but turns out it's not, only to see Sunak forced to blame the EU for the mess? Well, I don't think the country is going to allow that anymore. They're sick of people, Tories, blaming others. How's that going to help? Do they extend the dates again, making themselves look like complete muppets? Again. I'll tell you something, I've got a very bad feeling about this autumn, you know. Would it really have hurt Sunak just to get hold of some people who understand how the EU works, how trade borders work, just to advise the process? It's not like there aren't people available. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.